Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Yes, I am here extra early this morning. I've got at least two videos that I want to make right now that I really want to talk about. When I first started a YouTube channel, I was looking at suggestions on things, on topics, on what you should, what suggested topics from Google and YouTube. And one of the biggest things I still remember is they said you want to provide something for the viewer. You want to give them something: humor, knowledge, experience, help financial suggestions. Give them something in return for taking up their time, something that would make them want to watch your video. And my thing, because I wasted 25 years of my life in addiction, hard addiction, it feels like I can make something good out of those years. It's not because I like talking about myself. When I see a story and I see myself, I see my past in that story crystal clear. And it just starts going through my head, the stuff, how I could relate to this story. And that's the stories that I come out here and I do a video on. It's not because I just like talking about myself or anything like that. It feels like I can make something good. Something can come out of the mess I made out of 25 years of my life. A reason why I'm still here on this earth. And I really do feel like it's to do this, to share, so people can connect and say, oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about, dude. And hopefully that's what's going to happen today. So like I said, I want to make two videos, and the first one's about Bam Margera. And again, I'm not slamming on Bam. I'm slamming on Bam. I'm not picking on him. I never watched Jackass. I was never one of his fans. But when I look at Bam Margera, I see myself crystal clear, man. Everything he does, everything he says, the excuses, the ongoing problems. His age, even. When I got clean and sober, I was 40 years old in 2006. And Bam is me. And if I can provide any help, any insight to other people, to anybody watching these videos, it's something, and it's something that helps me to make something good out of 25 wasted years of my 2.5 wasted years of my life, two and a half wasted decades, of my life. The second video I want to do is about, I don't know how else to say this, the N-word and race. There's been 2 more arrests in the Montgomery Riverboat brawl. But here's the interesting one. On Big Brother, I used to be a huge fan of Big Brother. It's like season 25 now, and even if you're not a fan of it, the night tonight they're going to talk about it on Big Brother Thursday night. One of the house guests are getting kicked off because they used the N-word. And I guess this happened before. And I want to talk about that. Maybe it's time to have a conversation about the N-word, because I've never used it in my life. And I'll talk more about that in the video. Actually, I did use it once, and that's why I want to talk about the video. All right, let's get into Bam Margera. Bam got arrested. Not even 24 hours ago, 4:30 early Wednesday morning, not even 24 hours ago. These are videos that I like doing that are just very, very topical, very recent. Here's the details. This was in Radnor Township, a suburb right outside of Philly. Patrolling officers saw him arguing loudly with a woman outside the Radnor Hotel. I'll probably post a picture of Bam and a picture of the hotel, and the links will be down below for this story. Like I said, this story just came out. He was arrested not even 24 hours ago. They approached him. He smelled like booze. He was slurring his speech. He got 2 citations. I take it these are like citations, like misdemeanors. Disorderly conduct, one for disorderly conduct and one for public intoxication. He was released after calling a friend. It doesn't give his any kind of bail or anything. Usually this is released on your own recognizance or a $500 bond. I know, because it's happened to me before. All right, where to start with this? And this one, I really wanted to talk about this because it's got to do with alcohol. But let's start first things first here. Bam. Now, he says one of the biggest things he desires in his life is to see his son. I'll say it again. I'm not sure if it's his girlfriend, his baby mama that has his child. I hope it's okay to say his baby mama. I don't know what else to call her. And he blames everybody. He blames her for being evil. He blames Steve-O and his friends for taking away his career. And he doesn't see that his own behavior is just making things worse. I remember being in this position, saying I gotta, I'm just gonna have one drink. I'm not using, and I'm gonna get into that more in a second. And it's everybody else's fault. If these people wouldn't do this, I wouldn't get so stressed out. And and I could hear Bam in my head. I could hear my own words in my head when I see this article. I could see myself and the excuse. And I was so blind at that time. If I saw myself sitting here now, I probably would have just shut the video off. That's nonsense. The dude doesn't know what he's talking about. I was so deep in denial. So, okay, now he's drinking here. All right, now there's no mention of drugs. Let me get into that a little bit. Once I was in his stage of addiction, the two just came together. This was one of the hardest thing. When I first thought that I had a problem and I needed to quit, like the hard drugs, like crack and heroin, the first thing an addict will say is, well, I could still, I'm going to quit that stuff, but I'm going to keep drinking. You can't keep drinking. The first thing that comes to an addict's mind, and when they're faced with this, is, well, what about New Year's? What about New Year's is the biggest one. I can't drink on New Year's. I can't drink on my birthday. I can't drink at a wedding. Are you kidding me? No, that's ridiculous. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm an addict. And weed's another one. I want to keep drinking, because that helps me. That helps me not use those other things. That helps me stay away from the harder drugs. Every freaking addict I've ever talked to in the last almost 17 years has said those exact words. If you talk to somebody that's in recovery, successful recovery, they'll just laugh when they hear this. The thing is, it's hard to picture. It's like, because it's become such a part of your life. It's like I've talked in other videos before about intimacy. I was drinking when I first started talking to girls. One of the very first times I got intoxicated. And I'm not telling you guys this because I think it's cool, like trying to glamorize it. I think it's sad. I was 15 years old. We had a half day at school, and I was walking two girls home, two of my good friends. As a matter of fact, I went on to date one of these girls just 10 years ago, Paula, and this other girl. And the other girl, none of her parents were home. She's a Portuguese girl, and her father made wine. So it was a half day. We stopped in me and the two girls went into her house, and we started to get into her father's wine. Her father came home. I don't know. Portuguese wine was so incredibly hard. High alcohol. People had to fill me in on what happened. Her father came home and found us in various stages of intoxication and undress. I'm lucky he didn't do bodily damage to me after finding me. He found me hiding in his daughter's closet. He took me home to my mother, and I had a paper route at that time. I started a paper route I had multiple paper routes. That's how I paid for my first car. And I was so drunk. My mother had to tell me later about all this. And I was so drunk, I couldn't do the paper route. My mother had to go do my paper routes that day, which is sad. First thing I remember is waking up on a beanbag chair in my room, throwing up all over myself in my underwear. And my mother just looking ticked off, man. And she was making my bed after probably I'd puked on it the 10th or 11th time. And that's the first memory, and to fill me in. And the sad part of this is I was a 15-year-old kid. I was on a paper. I was too drunk to do my paper route. I could see the problem starting right there. And then it progressed. It progressed to, I'd go out to a bar and I'd drink. And anybody that's been, that's messed around with these things or gone to a bar, you realize, but as the hours go on, as it gets past 11, 12, and you're drinking, you start to slow down. You start to get stagger, slur your words like Bam. And that's where the miracle drug, and I'm being sarcastic here, because that's what it seems like at the time, of cocaine comes in, because around, I'd say 50, 60, 70% of bars, there's somebody selling little quarter pieces, the bottom rung of the dealing ladder, $20 pieces of cocaine. and you do a line of that, and bam, you're awake again, and you can drink more, and you're lively, and you're funny, and the girls love you, and you could go forever, and you have no problems, and it's fantastic. It's a miracle drug. And then you start to Jones. And then it progresses. It becomes more, the alcohol just becomes part of everything. I start with alcohol. That's how I would start. And then I would get my drugs for the day. It got to the point where as soon as I started, I needed both of them every day. But I could not drink without immediately going to cocaine and then heroin. And then I got addicted to heroin. And at the end, when I was 30, 35 to 40, I would wake up. This was every single day. I would wake up and I would go. First thing I tried to figure out how to get money. Every morning I was flat broke, no matter how much money I had, thousands of dollars the day before. And I go to lie, cheat, steal to get money. It had to be at least $50 because I need at least $35 to get a half bundle of heroin, so I wasn't sick anymore. The first thing I would buy is 2 nips or a half pint of Jägermeister. For as soon as I'd be waiting for that package store to open every single morning for years. This is how it progressed. And I still was telling myself, I'm not an alcoholic. I would just drink this to take the edge off because I started to feel sick from the heroin. And the Jägermeister, for some reason, I convinced myself was like a miracle cure for that. And that's the first thing. That was my breakfast every morning for at least 6, 7, 8 years. Every single morning. Like a half pint, at least a half, probably I'd say about 7 shots of Jägermeister at like 9 o'clock, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And that would steel my nerves a little bit. And I could go into the roughest part of the city and get my dope. And then once I got my dope, well, then I'd feel good. And then I'd want to party. And then I would get my crack. And then once I got the crack, I started to feel nervous. So I'd have to go get some more heroin because it would kill the heroin buzz. Seriously, this was every freaking day. And once I started thinking about getting into recovery, I was terrified. I didn't think I could survive without drinking. Drinking had been part of my life since I was 14, 15 years old. I couldn't imagine having a relationship. I couldn't imagine being intimate with a woman. I've talked about this, I don't know how many times on this channel. I had no idea how people did it, like how a married couple could just go at it in the afternoon with straight with no buzz. It felt so weird and odd to me, the thought of it. And Christmas and New Year's and what about weddings? That's ridiculous. You can't ask me to go my whole life. Here's the trick too. They tell you don't think about going your whole life. You've probably heard this before. Just for today. Or when you're in the beginning stage of recovery, just for this hour, just for this next 60 seconds, can I make it without having a drink? Could I just get it out of my head and just live the moment without drinking? Can I do that for an hour? Can I do that for a day? Little steps. That's how I know it sounds corny, but that's how it starts. And now, seriously, right now, I couldn't imagine drinking. I mean, I had Budweiser was my best friend, was my favorite product out of any consumer product. Budweiser mirrors and Budweiser everything. Now the thought of beer, it scares me. The thought of drinking actually terrifies me because I feel, I don't know if the word is in control, but I'm here, I'm present, and it terrifies me. Like if I see something on TV of a teenager getting drunk, I can't imagine doing that. It scares me, the thought of doing that, to lose control of myself. That's how far it's come. I did a video back, I'd say about 5 years ago, and it was called I Lied. And this one time, about 10 years ago, when I first started dating the same girl, Paula, she drank every day. And we were going to go to a fair that night, and I'd be clean and sober for 7 years. And I would go pick up some wine for her. I didn't, because I was an alcoholic, so I didn't worry about it. And I got a bottle of champagne for me. Give it a try. I kind of, do I miss it? Let me try. And like I said in that video, I drank maybe 2 gulps, maybe half a glass, and I started to get scared. Like I started to get just my face getting flush. And I that was it. I couldn't drink anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore, and I'm kind of glad that happened, because it made me realize that I never want to drink again. I have no need to ever drink again. One more thing I want to share with you guys too. When I used to go in the hospital, and I want people that are in the recovery profession, like nurses that are in recovery or doctors in recovery, to pay close attention to this. I used to lie when I would go into recovery, into the hospital, into detox. I would tell them that I am an alcoholic, that I'm going to have physical withdrawals, DTs and stuff. If you know, and the reason I would do that was so that they would give me Ativan. They would give me tranquilizers when I went in, and I didn't need them. And that ended up screwing up everything. And they would, because you could die from withdrawals from alcohol. I would go in with no alcohol in my system, on my breath, and I would tell them that I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and they would start me on Ativan and methadone. And by the time I left detox, I was then addicted to Ativan, to the tranquilizer. I would have to withdraw as soon as I got out of the hospital. I was clean of everything else, but I built up an addiction to Ativan in the 5 or 6 days that I was in the hospital. I was shooting myself in the foot. Looking back, I just see how ridiculously stupid the things I did were. I never talked about that before, but this morning I started thinking about this. And medical professionals, I'm not suggesting anybody do this. It was stupid. It just compounded my problems. It made things much worse, because withdrawals from benzos are just as painful, if not worse, than withdrawals from heroin. So I was just making my life that much worse. I was taking something that I wasn't even addicted to and getting addicted to it while I was in detox. Ridiculous. And when I look at BAM, that's what I think. But people will say, well, was he using drugs? He was just drinking. No, when you get to this stage, and I'm pretty damn sure, 99.9% sure that BAM is at this stage, the two just come together. If he, like I said, I'm almost 100% sure that if he's not using drugs right when he got arrested, that he was on his way to get drugs, because that's just how it was. That's just, that was my life. That was my breakfast, lunch, and supper. That's how I existed. It had gone beyond. That's why I say, partying. I don't like that word partying, because it wasn't partying. It was my life. It was my full-time addiction. There was no party involved. It's what I needed 24/7. All right, those are my thoughts today. I've run much longer than I should have. Next up, I want to talk about the N-word. And one of the house guests getting kicked off Big Brother especially. And my first thoughts when I saw this, being a 57-year-old man, because when I was 57, nobody, there was no cases where anybody used the N-word, if you're white or black. And now people do use it, and I feel like it confuses the situation when some people can say it under certain circumstances. That's exactly what I think happened on Big Brother, and I'll talk about that in the next video. You guys have a great Thursday.